Driverly.com, unlimited drama series.
The text message glowing on Elena's second phone read, "Can't wait to taste you again tonight, baby." I stood there in our kitchen at 11:47 p.m., holding my wife's forgotten burner phone, watching 23 increasingly explicit messages scroll past from someone named Julian. My coffee mug hit the granite countertop with a satisfying crack. 15 years of marriage. 15 goddamn years of her late client meetings and weekend conferences. I'd been the dutiful IT manager husband, fixing her laptop, managing our smart home system, while she climbed the corporate ladder at Pinnacle Marketing. Now I knew what, or who, she'd been climbing. The garage door rumbled. Elena was home early from her business trip to Portland. I slipped her phone back into her Hermes bag and waited. "Carter? Why are you still up?" Elena swept in wearing her power suit, perfectly pressed despite supposedly driving 3 hours. Her lipstick was fresh. Her hair was salon perfect. "Couldn't sleep. How was the conference?" She kissed my cheek, a practiced peck that smelled like expensive cologne, not hers. "Productive. The Riverside Hotel account looks promising." I nodded, sipping my coffee. "Funny thing about the Riverside Hotel." "What's funny?" "It burned down 6 months ago." Elena froze for exactly 2 seconds. Then her marketing-trained smile clicked back into place. "I meant the new Riverside Development Project. You know how these things work." "Do I?" She studied my face, those calculating green eyes searching for cracks in my composure. "You seem tense, honey. Everything okay at work?" "Everything's perfect." I set down my mug. "Your phone was buzzing earlier. The iPhone. Thought it might be important." "Thanks. I'll check it later." "Already did." I pulled out her second phone, a sleek Samsung she thought I didn't know about. "Julian sounds like quite the romantic." The color drained from Elena's face. For the first time in years, I saw her without the mask. Raw panic flickered across her features before the professional composure slammed back down. "Carter, I can explain." "Can you?" "Because Julian's pretty explicit about what you two did in his apartment last Tuesday. Very detailed. Almost poetic, really." She lunged for the phone. I held it higher. "Give me that. Which part was your favorite? The thing with the kitchen counter, or when he called you his marketing goddess?" "You have no right to go through my personal." "Personal?" I laughed, a sound that surprised even me. "Elena, we share a bank account. We share a mortgage. We share a bed. The only thing that's personal around here is apparently your boyfriend." She slapped me, hard. My cheeks stung, but I just smiled. "Feel better? I never meant for you to find out this way." "What way did you mean? Skywriting? Billboard on Route 1? Elena's shoulders sagged. For a moment, she looked older than her 42 years. "It just happened, Carter. Julian and I work together. We connect on a level that—" "Save the TED Talk." I pocketed her phone. "I'm going to bed. You can sleep in the guest room. We'll talk tomorrow, when you've had time to craft a better story." I walked upstairs, leaving her standing in our kitchen like a stranger in her own house. From our bedroom window, I watched her pace the driveway for 20 minutes, probably calling Julian from her regular phone. The funny thing was, I wasn't even angry yet, just cold, calculating. For the first time in years, my mind was working at full capacity, processing possibilities like a computer running optimization algorithms. Elena thought she was the smart one in this marriage, the ambitious one, the one who understood how the world really worked. She was about to learn how wrong she could be. Miles Brennan's private investigation office sat above a used bookstore in downtown Millbrook, accessible only by a narrow staircase that creaked like a haunted house. Perfect for a guy who'd spent 20 years as a cop before hanging out his PI shingle. "So your wife's cheating," Miles said, leaning back in his chair. "And you want what, exactly? Photos? Financial records? GPS tracking? Information?" I slid a manila folder across his desk. "Everything you can find on Julian Cross, creative director at Pinnacle Marketing. Where he lives, what he drives, his habits, his weaknesses." Miles opened the folder, scanning the printouts I'd made from Elena's phone. His eyebrows climbed higher with each page. "Jesus, Carter, your wife doesn't mess around." "Apparently she does. That's the problem. You know what this stuff costs, right? Surveillance, background checks, financial investigation." "Money's not an issue." I pulled out a cashier's check. "There's 5,000. Get me enough to bury them both." Miles studied the check, then my face. "What exactly are you planning?" "Nothing illegal. I just want to level the playing field." Revenge is a dangerous game, my friend. I stood up. So is marriage, apparently. Back home, Elena was already at work. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. We need to talk. Dinner tonight? Love, E. Love, right. I spent the morning doing something I should have done years ago. Really looking at our finances. Elena handled the bills, managed our investments, controlled our joint accounts. I'd been content to let her handle the details, while I focused on my IT job. Big mistake. 3 hours of forensic accounting revealed a fascinating pattern. For the past 18 months, Elena had been siphoning money from our joint savings into a separate account I'd never seen statements for. Small amounts at first, 500 here, 1,000 there. Recently, the transfers had gotten bolder. Last month alone, she'd moved $8,000. I called the bank. Mr. Mays, yes, I can see the account in question. It's a joint account with Elena Mays and Julian Cross. Would you like me to transfer you to? No thanks, just checking. A joint account, with her boyfriend, using money from our marriage. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Julian. We need to talk. Meet me at Rosso's at 7. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back. I'll be there. Rosso's was Elena's favorite restaurant, an upscale Italian place where she'd taken me for our last 3 anniversaries. The irony wasn't lost on me. Julian was already seated when I arrived, looking exactly like his LinkedIn photo, mid-30s, artfully messy brown hair, wearing a blazer that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. He stood when he saw me, extending his hand like we were meeting for a business lunch. Carter, thanks for coming. I ignored his hand and sat down. Let's get this over with. He settled across from me, suddenly less confident. Look, I know this is awkward. Awkward is forgetting someone's name at a party. This is something else entirely. Elena told me about your conversation last night. I want you to know that neither of us planned for this to happen. Really, because your text messages suggest a lot of planning, very detailed planning. Julian's face reddened. Those were private, so was my marriage. The waiter appeared, asking about drinks. Julian ordered wine. I asked for coffee, black. Helena loves you, Julian said after the waiter left. She's told me how much you mean to her. Funny way of showing it. She needs something different right now. Something exciting. Someone who understands her ambitions. I leaned forward. And you think that's you? I think I offer her things you can't. Such as, Julian straightened, finding his confidence again. Intellectual stimulation, professional partnership, a shared vision for the future. Shared bank accounts, too, apparently. His composure cracked slightly. Elena mentioned you'd found out about that. Did she mention I can freeze it with one phone call? You wouldn't. I pulled out my phone and dialed our bank's customer service line. Julian watched, his face growing pale as I navigated the automated menu. Yes, I'd like to place a fraud alert on account number. I rattled off the digits I'd memorized. Suspicious activity. Please freeze all transactions pending investigation. Julian lunged across the table, grabbing for my phone. I pulled back, ending the call. Done. Hope you two weren't planning any romantic getaways. You bastard. That's Elena's money too. Actually, it's my money. Elena's money. Our money. You're just the guy she's been giving it to. Julian stood up, his chair scraping loudly. Other diners turned to look. This isn't over. You're right, it's not. He stormed out, leaving me alone with my coffee and a growing sense of satisfaction. For the first time since finding Elena's phone, I felt like I was playing offense instead of defense. My phone buzzed. Elena, what did you do? Julian says you froze our account. I typed back. Our account. Interesting choice of words. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, come home. We need to talk. I paid for my coffee and headed home to face my wife. Elena was waiting in our living room, still in her work clothes, but with her hair down and makeup touched up. She'd lit candles and opened a bottle of our wedding wine, a 2009. and Bordeaux we'd been saving for our 20th anniversary. Trying to set a mood, I asked, loosening my tie. Trying to have an adult conversation with my husband. I sat in the armchair across from her, deliberately avoiding the couch where we used to watch movies together. I'm listening. Elena took a sip of wine, gathering her thoughts. When she looked up, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. I never wanted to hurt you, Carter. You have to believe that. But you did anyway. Yes, and I'm sorry. Sorrier than you'll ever know. Sorry you did it, or sorry you got caught. She flinched. Both, if I'm being honest. At least you're being honest about something. Elena set down her wine glass and leaned forward. Can I tell you how it started? Do I have a choice? Julian joined the agency 8 months ago. He was assigned to the Riverside Project, the real Riverside Project, not the hotel. We started working late together, brainstorming campaigns, developing strategies. He listened to my ideas, really listened. I listened to you. You listened to my day, Carter. You ask about my meetings and my deadlines and whether I remembered to pick up dry cleaning. Julian listens to my dreams. The words stung because they held a grain of truth. When had I stopped asking Elena about her ambitions? When had our conversations become purely logistical? So you decided to sleep with him. It wasn't that simple. We connected intellectually first, then emotionally. The physical part, she shrugged helplessly. It just happened. Multiple times, in multiple locations, with impressive creativity based on his texts. Elena's cheeks burned red. You don't have to be cruel. Cruel? Elena, you've been living a double life for 8 months. You opened a bank account with another man using money from our marriage. You lied to my face every single day. But I'm the one being cruel? I know how it looks. How it looks? How it looks is like my wife decided she was done with our marriage, but was too cowardly to actually end it. Instead, she decided to have her cake and eat it too. Elena stood up, pacing to the window. Maybe I was cowardly. Maybe I should have asked for a divorce months ago. Why didn't you? She turned back to me, and for a moment I saw the woman I'd married 15 years ago. Vulnerable, uncertain, human. Because I do love you, Carter. Just not the way I used to. Not the way you deserve. The honesty hit harder than any lie could have. So what now? I asked. I don't know. Julian thinks we should... I don't give a damn what Julian thinks. I stood up, anger finally breaking through the cold calculation. Julian doesn't get a vote in our marriage. He's part of this now. No, he's part of you. There's a difference. Elena wrapped her arms around herself. What do you want from me, Carter? I studied her face, memorizing the features I'd once found so beautiful. I want you to choose. Choose? Him or me? The marriage or the affair? You can't have both. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You're either married to me or you're not. Make a decision. Elena was quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at our neighborhood, houses full of couples who were probably having normal Tuesday night conversations about normal Tuesday night problems. I need time, she said finally. How much time? I don't know. A few weeks? A month? 1 week. She spun around. That's not enough. 1 week, Elena. 7 days to decide if 15 years of marriage is worth saving. If you can't figure that out in a week, then you've already made your choice. I headed for the stairs, then stopped. Oh, and Elena, that joint account with Julian? I didn't just freeze it. I emptied it. Every penny is sitting in a new account that only I control. You can't do that. I just did. Funny thing about being married, we have equal claim to marital assets, including the ones you gave to your boyfriend. I left her standing in the candlelight, surrounded by the remnants of her attempted seduction. Upstairs, I packed a bag and drove to a hotel. It was time to visit some old friends. The Millbrook Tavern hadn't changed in 20 years. Same sticky floors, same neon beer signs, same smell of fried food and broken dreams. I found my old crowd at their usual table in the back corner. Steve Morrison, Danny Walsh, and Tom Bradley, the guys I'd grown up with, played high school football with, stood up for at their weddings. Carter fucking Mays. Steve stood up, grabbing me in a bear hug. Where the hell have you been, stranger? Around. Work keeps me busy. Work. Danny snorted. Man, remember when we used to have lives? I ordered a beer and settled into the familiar rhythm of male conversation. Sports, work complaints, mutual friends who'd moved away or gotten divorced. It felt good to be around people who knew me before I became half of Carter and Elena. So how's the missus? Tom asked, inevitably. Still climbing that corporate ladder? Something like that. Steve caught the edge in my voice. Trouble in paradise? I took a long drink, considering how much to share. These guys had been my best friends once. We'd shared everything: dreams, fears, stupid teenage secrets. But that was before Elena, before I'd gradually drifted away from bachelor nights and fishing trips in favor of couples dinners and charity galas. Elena's having an affair. The words hung in the air like smoke. Danny choked on his beer. Tom whistled low. Steve just nodded like he'd been expecting it. Sorry, man, Steve said. That's rough. Yeah. I stared at my bottle. 8 months, apparently, with some guy from her office. What are you gonna do? Danny asked. I don't know yet. Tom leaned forward. You want my advice? Cut your losses, divorce her ass, and take half of everything. It's not that simple. Sure it is, Steve interrupted. She cheated. She broke the rules. Game over. Easy for you to say. You've never been married. And this is exactly why. Steve gestured around the table. Look at us, Carter. Tom's on his second divorce. Danny's paying alimony to a woman who...
You wrote him love poems. In 10 years, you never wrote me a word.
It was emotional.
How is he telling in another?
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
hates his guts. Marriage is a sucker's game. That's not... I started, then stopped. What was I defending? The institution of marriage? My particular marriage? The fantasy of what I'd thought my marriage was? You know what your problem is? Tom said, warming to his theme. You put Elena on a pedestal. Treated her like she was too good for you. Women don't respect that. They want a man who knows his own worth. Elena's not some prize to be won, I said. She's a person making choices. Shitty choices, Danny added. Choices that make you look like a fool. The words stung because they held truth. I had been a fool. Blind, trusting, content to let Elena handle the details while I focused on being the steady, reliable husband. So what's your plan? Steve asked. I gave her a week to choose, me or him. All three of them started talking at once. That's your first mistake. Never give an ultimatum unless you're ready to. She's already chosen, man. She chose him 8 months ago. I held up my hand for silence. Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm handling this all wrong. Damn right you are, Tom said. You should be making her life hell right now. Freeze the bank accounts. Change the locks. Hire a lawyer. Show her there are consequences. I did freeze the accounts. The ones she was sharing with her boyfriend. Steve grinned. Now you're talking. What else? I found myself telling them about my meeting with Julian, about the private investigator, about the growing pile of evidence I was accumulating. With each detail, my friends grew more animated, more encouraging. This is beautiful, Danny said. You're finally fighting back. You should go public with this, Tom suggested. Post the evidence online. Let everyone see what kind of woman she really is. I can't do that. Why not? Steve demanded. She humiliated you. Fair's fair. I looked around the table at 3 men who'd never really liked Elena, who'd always thought she was too ambitious, too controlling, too good for their old friend Carter. They were enjoying this. My marriage's destruction was entertainment to them. Because I still love her, I said quietly. The enthusiasm died. Tom shook his head in disgust. Then you deserve whatever happens next. You died. That's not. It is, though. Steve's voice was harder now. You come in here looking for sympathy, but you're not ready to do what needs to be done. You're still hoping she'll choose you. Maybe I am. Then you're a bigger fool than we thought, Danny said. The conversation moved on to other topics, but the damage was done. I could see it in their faces, the disappointment, the judgment, the growing distance. These men who'd once been my closest friends now saw me as weak, pathetic. I left after 1 beer, making excuses about work in the morning. No one tried to stop me. Outside, I sat in my car for a long time, thinking about friendship and loyalty and the ways people change, or maybe the ways they reveal who they've always been. My phone buzzed with a text from Elena. Can we talk? I stared at the message, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I deleted it without responding and drove back to my hotel. Miles called Thursday morning with his report. Julian Cross, 34, divorced, no kids. Rented a high-end apartment downtown. Drove a leased Tesla. Carried significant credit card debt despite his impressive salary. More importantly, he had a history. 2 previous affairs with married coworkers at his last job in Boston. This guy's a predator, Miles said over coffee at a diner near his office. He targets successful women in relationships. Classic pattern. Elena's not a victim. Maybe not, but she's not his first married conquest either. Miles slid a manila envelope across the table. Financial records, employment history, social media analysis. Your boy Julian likes to live large. Expensive restaurants, designer clothes, weekend trips to Martha's Vineyard, all on credit. I flipped through the photos. Julian at trendy bars, Julian at gallery openings, Julian with a succession of attractive women. In several recent shots, Elena was clearly visible. He posted these? Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Guy documents his whole life online, including his relationship with your wife. My jaw clenched. She's in his social media? Not tagged, but visible. Anyone who knows Elena would recognize her. I studied a photo of Elena and Julian at what looked like a company party. She was laughing at something he'd said, her hand on his arm, looking happier than I'd seen her in months. There's something else, Miles said. Julian's ex-wife filed a restraining order against him 2 years ago. Allegations of harassment, stalking, financial manipulation. Manipulation how? He convinced her to take out loans in her name to fund his lifestyle. When she finally wised up and left him, he made her life hell. Showed up at her work, called her friends, posted intimate photos online. I looked up from the file. Photos. Revenge porn. She had to get a lawyer involved to make him take them down. The information settled in my stomach like a lead weight. Elena thought she was having a sophisticated affair with a charming colleague. She had no idea she was being played by a man who'd done this before. What's your advice? I asked. Miles leaned back, studying my face. Professionally? Document everything. Hire a divorce lawyer. Protect your assets. Personally? Get as far away from this situation as possible. Julian Cross is bad news, and your wife's about to find that out the hard way. I closed the file. What if I want to speed up that process? Carter? Nothing illegal, just educational. Miles was quiet for a moment. What did you have in mind? That afternoon, I did something I'd never done in 15 years of marriage. I went to Elena's office unannounced. Pinnacle Marketing occupied 3 floors of a glass tower downtown. All modern furniture and motivational posters about synergy and disruption. The receptionist, a young woman with purple hair and multiple piercings, looked up as I approached. I'm here to see Elena Mays. Do you have an appointment? I'm her husband. That got her attention. Oh, Mr. Mays, let me call her. Actually, I'd like to surprise her. Could you point me toward her office? The receptionist hesitated, then gave me directions to the 3rd floor. I took the elevator up, noting the company directory. Julian Cross, Creative Director, Office 3B. Elena Mays, Marketing Director, Office 3F. Convenient. Elena's office was impressive. Corner location, floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive furniture. She was on the phone when I appeared in her doorway, gesturing animatedly as she talked. When she saw me, her face went pale. I'll have to call you back, she said, ending the call. Carter, what are you doing here? Thought I'd see where you spend your days. Nice office. Thank you. She stood up, smoothing her skirt. Is everything okay? That depends. Have you made your decision? Elena glanced past me into the hallway, checking to see who might be listening. Can we talk about this at home? I think here's perfect. Very professional environment. Carter, please. I met with a private investigator this week. Learned some interesting things about your boyfriend. Elena's face went white. What kind of things? I pulled out one of Miles's photos, Julian with his ex-wife at what looked like a romantic dinner. Did he mention he was married before? Of course. They divorced 2 years ago. Did he mention why? Elena didn't answer, but I could see the uncertainty creeping into her expression. Affairs, Elena, plural. He has a pattern of targeting married women, using them for financial and emotional support, then moving on when they get too attached or their husbands get suspicious. Julian isn't like that. Really? How much money have you loaned him? How many of his expenses have you covered with our joint account? Elena sat down heavily. You don't understand. Julian's building his portfolio, establishing himself in the market. The expenses are investments in our future. Your future? Elena, you're still married to me. For now. The words hung between us like a blade. I felt something inside me snap, not break, but shift into a new configuration. Colder, harder. For now, I repeated. Well, that clarifies things. I turned to leave, then stopped. By the way, you might want to ask Julian about his ex-wife's restraining order and the revenge porn charges. Very educational reading. I left Elena sitting in her corner office, surrounded by all the trappings of her professional success, looking smaller and more uncertain than I'd ever seen her. In the elevator, I made a decision that would change everything. Saturday night, I invited Elena to dinner at Rosso's, the same restaurant where Julian had tried to explain himself to me. She arrived looking beautiful and nervous, wearing the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. "Thank you for calling," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. "I wasn't sure you would. I've been thinking about what you said, about choosing." Hope flickered in her eyes. "And I choose to fight for my marriage." Elena's shoulders sagged with relief. "Carter, I'm so glad, but first, you need to see something." I slid a manila envelope across the table. Elena opened it with trembling fingers, her expression changing as she flipped through Miles's report. Photos of Julian with other women, financial records showing his debt, court documents from his ex-wife's restraining order. "Where did you get this? Does it matter? Is any of it untrue?" Elena stared at a photo of Julian and a blonde woman I didn't recognize, taken just 3 weeks ago, according to the timestamp. "He told me this was over," she whispered. "What was over?" "Her name's Madison. She works at the ad agency downtown. Julian said they'd dated casually, but it ended when we got serious." I pointed to the timestamp. "This was taken last Tuesday, the same night you told me you were working late on the Morrison account." Elena's face crumpled. "Oh, God. There's more. Financial records show he's been juggling at least 3 different women, all of them married, all of them contributing to his lifestyle. I don't understand. He loves me," he said. "He said what you needed to hear, just like he said it to the others." Elena pushed the photos away like they were contaminated. "This doesn't make sense. We have plans. We're going to move in together after my divorce is finalized." "Elena, look at me." She raised her tear-filled eyes. "There is no divorce. There's no future with Julian. There's just a man who saw a successful, lonely woman and decided to use her." "I'm not lonely. Aren't you? When's the last time we had a real conversation? When's the last time I asked about your dreams instead of your schedule? When's the last time either of us tried to connect with the person we married?" Elena wiped her eyes with her napkin. "That doesn't excuse what I did." "No, it doesn't. But it explains it." We sat in silence for several minutes, the weight of 15 years pressing down on us. Around us, other couples were having normal Saturday night conversations, blissfully unaware that their entire world could change with a single text message. "What happens now?" Elena asked finally. "That's up to you. But if you want to save this marriage, Julian has to go, completely. No contact, no friendship, no lingering professional relationship. He's my colleague. Then one of you needs to find a new job." Elena nodded slowly. "And if I do that, if I cut all ties with Julian, can we really come back from this?" I reached across the table and took her hand. "I don't know, but I'm willing to try if you are." "I am." She squeezed my fingers. "Carter, I'm so sorry. I never meant for things to go this far." "I know." We left the restaurant together, driving home in convoy like we had when we were dating. Inside our house, Elena went straight to her phone and blocked Julian's number. Then she deleted his contact information, their text history, even their professional emails. "There," she said, showing me the blank screen. "It's done." But it wasn't done. Not yet. Monday morning, Julian showed up at our house at 6 a.m., pounding on the front door like a man possessed. I answered in my bathrobe, coffee in hand. "Where is she?" he demanded. "At work, I assume." "She won't answer my calls. She blocked my number." "Smart woman." Julian pushed past me into our foyer, looking around like he owned the place. "This is your doing. You poisoned her against me." "I just showed her who you really are. You don't know anything about me." I set down my coffee cup. "I know about Madison and Sarah and the restraining order your ex-wife filed." Julian's face went white. "Elena told you about Madison." "Elena didn't need to tell me anything. I had you investigated, Julian. Professional job. Very thorough. You son of a bitch. Elena's done with you. Find someone else to bankroll your lifestyle." Julian stepped closer, his hands clenched into fists. "You think you've won? Elena doesn't love you anymore. She told me so herself." "Maybe not, but she doesn't love you either. She loved the idea of you, the fantasy. Now she knows what you really are." "This isn't over." "Yes, it is." I opened the front door and waited. Julian stood there for a long moment, probably calculating whether violence was worth the consequences. Finally, he walked out. I never saw him again. Elena quit Pinnacle Marketing 2 weeks later, taking a position with a smaller firm across town. We started marriage counseling. We talked more in those first few months than we had in the previous 5 years. It wasn't easy. Trust, once broken, doesn't heal overnight. There were setbacks, arguments, nights when one or both of us wondered if we were just prolonging the inevitable. But slowly, carefully, we rebuilt something new. Not the marriage we'd had before, that was gone forever, but something stronger, more honest, more intentional. A year later, Elena found Julian's engagement announcement in the local paper. He was marrying a recently divorced real estate agent, a woman with 2 kids and a successful business. I feel sorry for her, Elena said, showing me the article. Should we warn her? Elena considered this for a moment, then shook her head. She'll figure it out on her own. They always do. We threw the paper away and went back to our Saturday morning routine. Coffee, crossword puzzle, planning our day together. Simple pleasures that had taken on new meaning. I'd learned something important during those dark months. Marriage isn't a destination. It's a choice you make every day. Elena had stopped choosing us, and I'd stopped fighting for us. We'd both failed, in different ways, but failure isn't final unless you let it be. That night, lying in bed next to my wife, I thought about the path not taken. The divorce that could have been. The friends who'd wanted me to choose revenge over reconciliation. They'd been wrong. Not about Elena's betrayal, that had been real and devastating, but about what came next, about the possibility of redemption. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is fight for something worth saving, even when, especially when, everyone else tells you to let it go.